Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Will, and in this particular video I want to continue from the SlimDX series where we've been looking so far at generating 2D geometry. That was the previous entry in the SlimDX series for .NET C#. SlimDX is a neat C# library that allows us to access DirectX functionality via a managed space C# in order to create basically near native or native 2D graphics really fast, really efficient, a lot of control, a lot of flexibility, hence the DirectX APIs. And in this particular video, what I want to do is to go through how to actually generate a bitmap image. We already looked at how to generate a piece of geometry. Do watch the previous video on that if you haven't already, because that is quite fundamental to setting up the environment. And we're going to actually use a lot of that code, like 70% of the code, maybe 50% to 70%, I'm not too sure, I'm just estimating here, is basically what we've already done. We're just taking the geometry idea and we're just literally plugging in a bitmap image. It's the same thing. So I'll leave a link in the description, or I'll leave a card little button thingy, and definitely watch that before you watch this if you want to grasp the whole picture. But without much further ado, let's dive straight into this. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go into how to create this environment because I've already done that in the previous video, so do watch that. But for the sake of sort of just keeping things as focused as possible, I'm going to dive straight into the tilemap class. Now, if you are coming in from the previous video, you'll be aware of this game window D2D class. And this tilemap class is literally it's basically the mirror. It's basically the same class in that it does the same thing almost, but this time the tilemap is more geared towards the bitmap side of things. But we're still borrowing some functionality that I wrote from the game window D2D class, but then we're going to change a few things so that we're actually generating bitmaps instead of just like raw primitive geometries. What we're going to do, I'm going to go to the top of the tilemap class. I'm just going to kind of explain what's going on. There's going to be a lot of members here that don't pertain to anything in particular that you might see, because I'm telling you, this was a while. This took a while for me to get to. It took a lot of figuring out, but I got there, and it just takes a bit of perseverance sometimes, and it can be quite a good achievement when you get to where you want it to be, especially with these 2D graphics. So anyway, the first thing I would say that you should do is construct your class. So in tilemap, as you can see, make sure you are inheriting from the main game window and iDisposable, much like the game window class we're doing here as well. So make sure that the construction of your class is the same. Don't worry too much about these solid color brush members. We're not really using them, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about the strut, don't worry about the tile. What you do want to worry about, so to speak, add a member, SlimDX, Direct2D, window render target. Now, I had an issue where I could not figure out why I was getting a blank screen rather than the graphic you saw earlier. And the only discrepancy that comes to my mind is the fact that the render target I was using earlier was just not public. So maybe because I didn't use the public keyword, I'm not too sure. So all I'm trying to say here, make sure your members are more or less public, especially at this stage, just to make sure things are working, because that was sort of a thing for me. Okay, and again, there's a lot of, I do apologize for all the kind of like superfluous code around here. So you want to make sure you have this member declared. Next, you want to declare this member, a SlimDX Direct2D bitmap, and this I called m_player sprites. This is going to be the member that basically contains the sprite graphic itself. And we're going to construct the class much as how we did with the game window D2D. As you can see, I did here. Make sure you do it accordingly. You can even follow it kind of one-to-one just to make sure things work on your end. And this mFactory member pertains to the mFactory that's actually declared in the main game window. From the previous video, the previous tutorial, you'll have this member already if you are following through and you are writing it out. So this SlimDX Direct2D factory, you want to make sure you are referencing this, which you have access to thanks to the inheritance up here to the main game window. So we have access to this member. What we're doing is we're instantiating this, so we're instantiating it as a new SlimDX Direct2D factory. You want to instantiate a window render target properties struct. I've gone ahead and called it properties, and this doesn't compile because I can only kind of glean that this line is erroneous because the handles, there's a discrepancy with the handles, or you can't exactly infer that this is the window handle I'm trying to assign when trying to assign the window. It doesn't really make sense. So what I do recommend you do, is actually to do the following. After you instantiate your window render target properties, access the handle property from properties and assign it to base, call the base keyword, access the m_render form member, which I'll just go to the definition so you can see. Public render form, m_render form, it resides in the main game window class. You want to set that to the handle. Pixel size, I've created a new size, width and height. So let's go to the definitions. So width and heights are passed in here from the constructor of tilemap. If we go to the reference here, we'll have a look at what we're passing, what values we're actually using. I'll just wait for this to load. It just takes. Oops, I should have done that. Travel time. So we're just passing window width and window height, which our members have already defined here as 1080 by 720. Okay. Try and do this as steadily as possible so that, because this can be a very finicky process. Like it could be one member that's off and then just everything won't render. So I'll do my best to kind of take it quite steady here. So here we go. Where are we? So after you've set your window render target properties, make sure you instantiate it after you set the pixel size and the handle. I'm passing an mFactory member as we instantiated earlier and the properties. We're actually about like halfway there, because now what we want to do, we want to create a function called load bitmap, and this basically does all the nitty-gritty of generating the bitmap information itself, and we want to assign it to this mPlayer sprites, which is the Direct2D bitmap object that we declared earlier. So for this load bitmap, depending what your file path is, I would suggest that you pass as an overload the file path that you want to target as such. And let's actually look at the implementation of this function. So the reason I have this check, this Boolean check for false, true and false, is that there are two ways you can, there are many ways you can go about rendering using this API. It's so broad, but I kind of narrowed it down to two particular ways, using the GDI approach or using the Direct2D approach. And the thing is, I'll leave references in the description, but the long story cut short is that you can use the graphics, I don't even know what GDI stands for, I forgot, but GDI, graphics something interface, I can't remember exactly. It's not as, should I say, it's not as, the fidelity you'll get by using GDI is not as much as Direct2D. There's documentation that can kind of go into details about that. But if you did, for whatever reason, for maybe just like legacy or maybe compatibility with some of your other projects or what you're trying to do, you want to use GDI, I'll leave some references down below. For the most part, we're actually using the D2D approach here. So what did I pass in there? I think I passed false. Let me just double check that. So I'm passing false, load graphics from D2D. So if I go here, so if GDI is false, so in other words, we want to use the Direct2D approach. What I'm doing here, I'm instantiating a Direct2D bitmap. Now, this is quite important to kind of get right. It can get a little bit confusing, but I'll go through it line by line and try to explain as best as I can what's actually going on here. So you want to instantiate a Direct2D bitmap. Let's just zoom in a little bit. After you've done that, you want to call system drawing bitmap. I've gone and called this member original image, and I'm constructing it, and I'm passing the file name, as you can see there. Passing the file name. So this is the approach I did for the graphics. Excuse me. rectangle. This is the bounding rect that holds the image, and I've just set it to a default value of x, 0 for x and y, original image width, so I'm getting the dimensions of the original image, which is actually I think 120. So if I just highlight this, it's 120 by 120, as you can see there. Now we want to lock the memory holding the bitmap. That's the next step. So I'm calling this bitmap data class from system drawing imaging. I've gone ahead and called it image data, and then I'm calling lock bits, which you can access that function from original image, which is the system drawing bitmap class. That's where you get original image from above here. Calling lock bits, and I'm just filling the overloads. So bounds is the bounds of the is the rectangle that we created up here. Image lock mode is read only. You might get some issues if your pixel format is wrong. So the thing is, everyone's machine is different. So the pixel format that you might be running under for your program might differ to mine. What I found works is, for me, keeping it at format 32 BPP, P alpha RGB, alpha red green blue is what worked for me so far. So I'm just keeping it there for now. Now we want to create a data stream. So what you want to do, call the SlimDX namespace, and then access the data stream class and create a member, and then construct the class, as you can see here, and then you want to pass some overloads. So image 0, as you can see here, stride times height, true and false. So maybe I'll just go through these overloads and try and explain best as I can. Which one are we using? I don't think we're using that overload. What is this type? Yeah, it is actually. So in as much as I can tell here, I'm not 100% sure what this bit is doing, but all I know, this scan, it gets or sets the address of the first pixel data in the bitmap, probably quite important. This can also be thought of as the first scan line in the bitmap. So this does its thing, just make sure you populate it. For this second overload, I just calculated it as the image data stride times the height. So what I believe this does is, when we consider the stride, we're looking at, let's actually read what the description says first. So it gets or set the stride width, also called scan width, of the bitmap object. If we're looking at the width of the object, we want to make sure we basically pass all the bitmap information pertaining to the whole graphic, hence why we multiply our scan line across the image by the height of the image. Therefore we can kind of make sure that we're covering every scan line across the bitmap graphic. Can read is true and can write is set to false. Now we want to set our pixel format information. Now here's where things get a bit funny because my pixel format here is a little different. I'm passing it, well, it would seem different because I'm passing B8 B8G8 R8 A8, which I think kind of refers to 8-bit RGB alpha. I'm not 100% sure about that. The alpha mode is pre-multiplied, but for now it works, so I'm keeping it as that. Bitmap properties, I construct bitmap properties, and I'm passing under the pixel format property the pixel format that I configured up here. The DPI I set to 96 float, and then the vertical DPI is also 96 float. Now what we want to do is grab our D2D bitmap, which I'm going to just go to the definition, which is over here, which we made earlier. D2D bitmap, we're going to construct it, as you can see, and we're going to pass our window render target that we made earlier. We're going to create a new size, and this one is the bounds of the image, I believe. So bounds was, let me see where bounds is, I'm not too sure what it is. Yeah, so it's the rectangle we created to hold the image earlier. So we passed the width and height. The data stream, the image data, and the bitmap properties. We grab original image, as you can see here. I'll just go into the definition again. It's over here at the top. We already did it earlier. Call unlock bits, pass image data, then you can call dispose on original image, and now you can return the D2D bitmap. You can return this bitmap in member. So if we go back up to where we were calling this functionality, there's a lot of superfluous code there that we don't really need to worry about. So all of that I went through was just this bit here, and after all of those steps have done, we are returning the bitmap graphic, and we're storing it in this member, mPlayer Sprites, which is a Direct2D bitmap class. Alright, so now that we've done that, if everything compiles so far, congratulations, because now we're ready to actually draw the image using a bitmap brush. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a using block, as I've done here. And what I've done in this using block, I'm saying bitmap brush, which if I go to the definition, it's just up here, public bitmap brush. And I am constructing it. So new SlimDX Direct2D bitmap brush, passing the window render target, make sure it's the same one. I configured the bitmap brush horizontal and vertical extend mode to wrap, and I'm calling render scene. So let's see what this function is doing. It's very similar to the in my other video, where in the game window D2D up here in this class, to draw the geometry, we had this render scene function. It's literally almost the same thing. Only thing that's different, we're not calling fill geometry draw geometry, but what we're going to do is call begin draw clear as needed. And then the difference is that we're now calling draw bitmap. So from the window render target, we're accessing draw bitmap, and we're passing the sprite, the bitmap graphic, and a bounding rectangle as well, which I've set to the default 0, 0, so the top left of the screen as you saw, and it has the dimensions are 200 by 200. Make sure you call nDraw as well. Do make sure that this draw bitmap is only being called after you call begin draw. I did have an issue where I was calling this before begin draw, and it broke the program, so it doesn't work. So this only works if you're calling it after begin draw. I can hopefully even demonstrate this for you, just to kind of show. It's just the way things work. So I'll just wait for my program to run, and yeah, so as that's running, then make sure you're calling nDraw, and this is what's resulted right now. So it's a blank image, as you can see. We can't see the reticle, we can't see the background, and I'm getting exceptions after exceptions. So let's just end that, and let me grab draw bitmap. See, I'll just drag it over, and here we can see the image, the correct background, and the reticule image. So do make sure you're calling draw bitmap after begin draw. That's quite important, actually. It can be easy to kind of miss that, as I did once earlier today, actually, or as I was working through this before I recorded. Okay, and then we call render scene, and I'll just go through what this function does. So render scene, in the main game window class, again, you should already have this following the tutorial, the previous tutorial, if you are following that one as I was going through it. But this time, as you can see, I commented out game window D2D because we're not drawing the geometry from this class, we're drawing the tile map. So everything is like a recursive loop, because we're kind of following the game loop kind of, should I say, paradigm. So I'm just off screen, just crossing out a window. So yeah, everything kind of loops, and that is about it. Again, if you're following from the previous video, this one really does rely on the previous video, and if none of this makes sense, make sure you do watch that, because I actually go from like the start to the beginning of this tutorial, and this tutorial kind of tapers on from where I came off from before. Probably be in the same playlist or something, just to keep things quite easy to see. And I'm just going to sort of start wrapping things up from here. Hopefully everything was clear. Do leave some feedback if there's anything else you guys need to know about, anything that wasn't really clear in this particular video. Again, SlimDX, manage C# wrapper library to access DirectX functionality from, you can even program Direct3D stuff, but in this particular tutorial we're looking at Direct2D. Thanks for watching, guys. Do have a great day. and I do hope you found this video informative, if not somewhat educational or, you know, entertaining. And do stick around. I'll probably be exploring more of the SlimDX library. It's very interesting, and it's a very great primer into actually learning DirectX, even if you want to go and sort of I could even say, for lack of a better term, graduate to using the C++, the native language for DirectX. But using C#, as a C# developer myself, I am even coming to grips with C++ DirectX just by programming it on the SlimDX C# level. So it is quite useful. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I hope you all have a great day and an awesome week. Thanks again. Bye bye.